In today's video, I'm going to share with you 4 examples about how to answer behavioral questions that relate to strategy, dealing with ambiguity, and data-driven decision-making. Also, of Amazon's 14 leadership principles, I'll be talking about 4 of them: think big, dive deep, frugality, and customer obsession. In a previous role as a project manager for an B2B HR software, one of my responsibility was to keep track of data and to spot all the more interesting trends within the software. And this was actually quite nice because I was also in charge of actually designing the software. And in one such instance, for a report that I had designed to track how well the hiring processes, how effective the hiring processes were within the software, I noticed that one particular step, that of taking personality profiles, had only a pass rate of around 45%, which was very low compared to any other step within any other major step within the hiring process. So I identified it as a bottleneck, and together with my business partner, we decided that this could also be made optional. And this is just one example of how I ensured that the usability of the software and the functionality in the software would work as smoothly as possible by looking at data. And in this case, this was particularly efficient decisions because our pass-through rates increased by 4 or 5 times within the next quarter, just because we made this step optional. Now, what's interesting about this example is it actually talked about the data-driven decision-making process that helped me to showcase my strengths within this context, and also notice the use of metrics, which is quite obvious, I mean, if you're talking about data. But not only that, note also that I included key metrics, such as the pass-through rate for the personality profile being only at 45%. Also to be noticed here is the emphasis on results. This was actually beneficial for my business, and this is very important if you could also highlight within your own examples. Now, also this question can be can be a very good moment to showcase another leadership principles that Amazon are right a lot. Leaders are right a lot. Take this also into consideration when providing an answer here. And finally, here are 2 examples of other questions that you may ask yourself to test yourself how you would answer in such a scenario. I remember in a previous role as a project manager for an HR B2B software as a service business that we provided our clients, between others, with a multi-rater surveying tool. And this was a huge feature. I mean, it had a survey design engine, an invitation engine, and also a reporting one. And my initial thought was that that feature would be primarily used in order to help them design their custom surveys for their custom scoring mechanisms and so on. However, as soon as we demoed this as an early alpha version to a handful of our clients, we immediately noticed that pretty much every one of them was more interested in the reporting engine instead of designing surveys and scoring mechanisms. So we actually shifted all our resources into implementing a professional reporting engine that would also satisfy all our clients' requests. And this actually proved to be a very profitable idea, as the multi-rater surveying tool ended up being one of the most used features in this software. So this example is straightforward to understand. While one note that I would like to highlight here is that I ensured customer obsession because I demoed this software early, which I cannot stress enough how important it is to highlight that you are comfortable to work in fast-paced environments, because what usually happens in software and what hiring managers are looking more and more for is for people that tend to slow it down, to only release, to only demo a version to their clients once it's ready. So it's very important that you emphasize this spirit within your own answers. I remember that early in my career as a project manager, I had to design software according to client specification, and I often had to decide the technology that would be employed in a software. And the decision at the time often came between two technologies, either the PHP and MySQL, the LAMP environment, either the .NET SQL, the Microsoft version. And I remember the decision-making process was always quite challenging because I had to see the overall picture. I had to see whether if this project was only a prototype, in which case I would often go with .NET because it had many more ready-made components and it allowed me for quicker turnarounds, or if it was something more of a long-term that has to be something custom-made, designed to handle high volumes of traffic, and emphasize on those things, in which case I would very much prefer building it from scratch and going with the other option. And also budget was another constraint that I would always have to take into consideration. And even if at times I wasn't always right about the technology from the first shot, the bread and butter of my choice was to deliver on the client's requirements with the right type of quality and within of course the timeline that they imposed. Decision making is a particularly important aspect that you'll be tested on, especially for senior and project management roles. And what is of essence here is first to make sure that you polish your answers as well as possible, so you show confidence here, and also to practice actually telling these answers in front of the mirror or in front of other people to see how you perform there. And I cannot stress enough how important this last step is of practicing it, and because I've seen it myself while doing these videos. Probably the best example here would be to talk about the time when my good friends and clients started their first arts gallery, and I was actually in charge of designing their web presence and their website. So together with an arts critic, we gathered the three of us in order to decide what would be the best solution in that case. And the arts critic was insisting to have a big website, and this was pretty much within the same lines of the owner's visions, because they had a big gallery after all. However, on my end, I was a bit more reticent to investing a lot of resources in designing a website that I knew was requiring a lot of resources to maintain, when in fact there wasn't even a monetization plan for this website. So after intense discussions and after negotiations, we finally decided to focus on communicating, on using that website and other online resources to communicate the fact that the gallery was open and what was going on there, instead of using it as a main entry point to gain new business. And luckily this worked quite well. I mean, I managed their website I manage now their website for 6 years. The art gallery is one of my good friends, and by the way, they just opened their second arts gallery downtown. So I believe this example was pretty much self-explanatory here. Just a few highlights. Notice that I ensured that the answer would be properly structured, and I included all the relevant details within the main sections of my star answer. And also maybe interesting to note here is how I showed my credibility as a main strength in this project that was also a main factor for its long-term success. Now, of course, I highlighted here the frugality as a leadership principle, and because I wanted to demo how this would work with such a data-driven answer, and I find it because it's more appropriate for data-driven roles as well. But this example could have very well worked for the ownership principle, and I believe that I also used it in other scenarios for other purposes. So, of course, the main takeaway is that be as concise as possible and inspire confidence if you can, and this again can only be achieved by practicing it. So there you go. I hope you found these 4 examples about how to answer questions about data and strategy and dealing with ambiguity useful, and thank you very much for watching.